Welcome back, boys and girls. Glad you could join me today. What I want to talk about today is how to clean car leather. Literally, what does Darren do? So often in my travels, I am reached out through endless social media platforms, and the question keeps coming up like this. Darren, I get it. There's a lot to learn, but just tell me, what would you do? Hence, WWDD. What would Darren do? So I'm about to show you what Darren does when it comes to cleaning car leather, because there's a lot of hype, misinformation, bad information that is spread around when it comes to car leather specifically. Let's get down to business. Car leather, first thing you need to know, and probably the most critical point, is this. Virtually all car leather is coated with a clear protective coating. It is much more durable, resistant to wear and tear than leather of 20 or 30 years ago. Now, while many of you might find that unwanted, the good news is that it's actually good news because it makes your car leather more resistant to aging and wear and tear, but it also makes cleaning it easier and simpler than ever. This is what I do. My go-to product currently is Simple Green. It's their all-purpose cleaner. It's a concentrate. That means it's very economical. It also means that I can custom blend this to my desired needs. If I need it stronger, I can make it stronger. If I need it weaker, I can make it weaker. For when it comes to leather specifically and car interior specifically, let's just keep it simple. My preferred dilution ratio is 10:1. That means 1 part concentrate added to 10 parts water. This is my solution here. Now, if you're overly fearful when it comes to car leather because you've never dealt with it before, you can approach this in a few ways. First off, these are my go-to brushes. Literally, these are about the only brushes that I use in cleaning my car leather. If you're a beginner, you might find this disturbing because there's plenty of videos where you will see a guy take a brush like this that's oh so soft and delicate, and they will spray some cleaner onto their leather, and they will sit there and agitate it very gently, and then they will tell you to mop it up ever so gently so as to not damage the leather. Well, okay, that's fine if you've got all day on your hands, which I don't. And it's fine if you're cleaning leather that's not actually dirty, it's clean. So if it was really clean, you wouldn't need to clean it, would you? So I get it. So whenever I see a video like that, that tells me one of two things. Either one, the guy doesn't really know what he's doing. Actually, I could add 3 things. 2, he's got way too much time on his hands and he's looking for something to kill time, so he wants to spend an hour just cleaning his seat. Or 3, he's trying to make what the saying here in the United States is a mountain out of a molehill. He's over dramatizing the moment. He's adding complexity to the moment where there doesn't need to be complexity. It's called detailing theater. Okay, I know that's my condescending, I'm a prick kind of voice, but it's just me being frustrated at the endless hype that I see pervasively on the internet. So ditch this brush because it's going to be completely ineffective when it comes to cleaning your car leather. These 2 brushes, on the other hand, combined with this all-purpose cleaner, one of the biggest myths of the industry when it comes to car leather is that you need special dedicated car leather cleaners because car leather's oh so delicate and fragile, when in reality it simply isn't. Why? Mostly because it has that clear coating on it. So you'll notice that this whole time this solution has been sitting on my leather. Am I worried? No. You know why? Because I understand that this has a coating on it, and secondly, this solution, it's effective but very safe. Safe for my leather, safe for my body. So these 2 brushes are my go-to brushes. This is my #1 brush. scrub pad to be more specific or precise, because it fits perfectly in the palm of my hand. It's moldable, malleable, pliable, bendable, whatever you want to call it. And so based on the contours and the shapes of my seat, I can literally contour it precisely to match the seat area that I'm trying to clean. Now, when I'm cleaning a seat like this, I break it down into sections, particularly when it comes to car leather. So I will shoot some spray, my cleaning solution, let's say on the front, I don't even know what you call this, the front leading bolster, and I will scrub. Now, if you're nervous and fearful, guess what? There's some good news, and the good news is that you remain in control. You will be able to find these pads on my website. You'll be able to find links to my website below any video that you happen to be watching. This is a non-abrasive synthetic scrub pad. If you're really, really fearful and concerned, then by all means use one of those brushes. But if you actually have dirty leather, I promise you, you will be disappointed and you will go looking for something more effective. So get one of these pads and rub it on your own skin. It's not drawing any blood. It's not abrading my skin. It's not scratching the crap out of my arm. So that's kind of a good indicator. It will also be an indicator as to how much pressure perhaps you should or should not apply. So when I'm cleaning car leather, the amount of pressure largely is dependent on the amount of dirt I'm trying to clean. Now my seats, I keep them very clean because, well, I like clean stuff. So there's not a whole lot of dirt on this. In fact, there's only maybe a week's worth of driving on this leather. And most of the time, since I drive with my clothes on, it's not actually coming in contact with my skin. But it's summer here in California, so the bottom half of my legs are exposed, which would then wrap at the front of this seat itself, which would then transfer some of my, what do you call it, human dander, oils, lotions that happen to be on my leg. It's going to transfer it onto this. It's going to get dirty. I want to clean it off. So I scrub, I mop it up. Here we are now, folks. A little less than desirable angle, but I want you to be able to see the brush and see it in action. You don't have to spray, if you're overly fearful, you don't actually have to spray your car leather with the cleaning solution. You can spray the brush, you can spray the pad. If your car leather isn't that dirty, you can actually just spray a microfiber cloth and rub it really aggressively and mop up any dirt that you happen to see. It can be that simple if your leather is that clean already or not that dirty. But this scrub brush, many of you would find disturbing, but you do need a scrub brush on certain types of leather, specifically if it has a very heavy texture to it. Because if it has an overly aggressive, for lack of a better term, texture to it, this pad will not have the ability to get in all those little valleys of the texture. It will glaze right over the top and just hit the tops of the hills. But we want to get the valleys clean. So you may need to spray the cleaner, take your brush, and whether it's back and forth, up and down, circular, you just got to do whatever you got to do to get that leather clean. Keeping in mind that you constantly check your results. If you're a beginner, make sure you're not going in too aggressively. But you do. You apply, you agitate, you mop up, you check your results. Often, if leather is dirty enough, you're going to need repeat applications. That is perfectly normal. There is some car leather that I've dealt with that I've literally had to scrub each panel individually 5 and 6 times to get them completely clean. So just know that that's normal if your leather is that filthy. Okay, let's move on from there. What I will add, and I'm not going to take the time to show it to you because you've all seen probably someone vacuuming their car seat. My simple rule is that you start with dry and you finish with wet. And what I mean by that is that when you detail anything, whether it's your floor mat that's carpeting, velour, non-porous materials, you vacuum up the dry debris first. Specifically, the reason you want to do that is because when you introduce a liquid into the equation, it's going to mix with that dry debris that you haven't removed first, that is much easier to remove when it is dry. It's going to mix with it and it's going to create kind of a mess that is unwanted and that might make your job even more difficult or time consuming than it really needs to be. So pretend in this moment, play along with me that I've already pre-vacuumed this. You need to pay special attention to the seams, regardless of your vacuuming or whether you're cleaning, because the seams are like this. In this position, when there's no weight on the seams, they're kind of closed up. So when you put weight on them, depending upon the seam itself, some of them will close up tighter, some of them will actually spread apart more. The point being is that, and also as a side note, through experience, I know that I've had customers come in because there's so much of their emotion attached to their car leather. They will come in and they will specifically pull apart the seams to see and check that I got the seams perfectly cleaned. I don't want one of those oops moment like, oh, sorry, Johnny customer, I'm a detailed guy, but I forgot those details. I'll get those details now that you've seen them. I don't want a moment like that. So you need to pay attention to that. So wait for it. That's where I might reach for one of my brushes. Oh, check that out. It's called Reach. That was not deliberate or planned. That was just coincidental. But they do make a fine toothbrush. It's got this kind of angled Reach type of head to it. So I will pull apart without being stupid about it. I'm not gonna like go in level 10 and rip it apart and separate the actual fibers or the stitching, but I'm gonna pull it apart to expose any dirt or debris that's trapped or hidden in there because I wanna clean it. So I may spray this, check to see what's down there, take my toothbrush, scrub the seam, and then mop it up. Now with that said is, if you do not mop it up thoroughly enough, when that seam closes back up, that liquid is going to remain trapped in there. Now I know a couple of you out there, your heads are going to be spinning right now because you're going to be thinking, wait a minute, that guy just got the stitching wet and that stitching is going to remain wet. Well, as a note, once again, that's why I pick a cleaner that's safe. I know it's safe through years of use. I've seen cars for years and years and years. I've literally taken care of cars for 10 plus years. So I can verify results. I've never had a seat suddenly start falling apart because the stitching was not completely dried after I cleaned it. Because I know there's going to be someone out there that's going to make some comment that's based on, well, complete inexperience. So I'm just letting you know for the rest of you people out there. Also, believe it or not, you need to be cautious of two specific things. Just what are those two specific things that might be less than obvious than the obvious specific things? One of them is this. It's called a prophylactic. Specifically, it's called a glove. Now, while I could have led with a glove, I decided to mix things up a little bit and end with a glove. Why do you need a glove? Well, the obvious would be that it protects your hands from getting dirty and it protects your hands from chemicals. Often you might wonder, well, if the chemical is damaging to your hands, would it not be damaging to the leather itself? Well, that's a discussion for a whole nother time. But one of the reasons that I love Simple Green is because it's safe for my hands, so I'm not worried about that. But what I am worried about is these things called fingernails. So despite I can have my fingernails, which make, by the way, very useful tools. So you can scratch your car paint, and by scratch I mean the act of rubbing your fingernail on it. I don't mean the act of putting scratches into the paint. I can rub my fingernail across the paint and it will not scratch it. But if I have a sharp edge or what's called a hangnail, I can barely touch my paint and it will scratch it. It doesn't make sense, but it's happened. I've seen it happen. I've done it. I've had to fix it. It will happen. So that holds true with the car leather. So you think like, oh, well, I don't even have long nails. Well, trust me, you don't need long nails to have a sharp edge to them. So you either need to make sure that they're filed all nice and smoothly, and I know you might think that this is like, I've gone into the weeds and this is the minutia of the moment, but wait until the very first time you scratch your leather with a hangnail that was completely accidental and you're like, WTF, I can't believe that just happened with that stupid little edge on my fingernail. So that's another reason for using a glove. It's not just to over dramatize the moment. Secondly, the tip of your vacuum hose, this can get little burrs, little rough edges to it. So when you're vacuuming the leather, especially if it's leather that's in pristine condition, like in this car, if there's any little burr on this, it will have the potential to scratch or leave a gouge, mark, scratch, something unwanted that's permanent that you will not want to happen. So you need to be cautious of that. Occasionally or regularly, I will check the tip of my vacuum nozzle and make sure that it's all nice and smooth and I feel no rough or sharp edges. In the event that there is, you can literally abrade it against the ground. You can take some emery cloth, you can take some sandpaper, take whatever you've got that will wear down that edge so that it's nice and smooth, so that you're not doing anything unwanted to your car leather. So in 75,000 words or less, that's how Darren takes care of his car leather. Specifically, that's how I clean my car leather. I made this because I was just upstairs working on a page about cleaning car leather, and I thought I need to make a dedicated video for that. So if you have any tips that you would like to offer and leave on the comments below this video, by all means, please do so. Not just for my benefit, but for the benefit of those following up after the fact. With that said, by all means, give it a thumbs up, subscribe. If you want to get the alerts every time I upload a video, hit the little bell icon next to the video. And until then, we'll see you on the next video.